Yes, it's coming up.
Okay. Now, purposely, I have put this flower photograph here so that we avoid the photo of Corona anymore. Okay. Now, in this presentation, I would be talking briefly about uh, the introduction part, which will cover the relevance of COVID-19 to food processing industry, followed by the safety and hygiene practices requirement for food industry, which are issued by FSSAI. I call it COVID special guidelines. And since this is not a platform wherein we can cover all the guidelines in detail, I have prepared a checklist, inspection checklist based on this COVID-19 special guidelines. Scientific aspect which I want to share here is that this virus requires a living cell, either animal or human body, for multiplication. It will not multiply on the outer surfaces. On the surfaces and objects, it can only survive, and there is a degradation rate of what we call it as a half life, which ranges for plastic or plastic packaging material. It is somewhere around 6 hours, and for stainless steel it is somewhere around 8 hours. So that is the uh, half life of this viruses. It achieves while it is on the surfaces. Now, inside the human body, when we get the infection, the major site for its replication is our respiratory system. It means if it successfully enter our body through the respiration tract and there it settle itself and multiply, then only there are chances that we will get the symptoms and major infection. Now, coming to food, how food is related to this. So, can food transmit the virus? No, food cannot transmit the virus because food will not support the multiplication of virus. This is the good point about it. However, food will act as a wherein this virus can land and survive for certain days. And yes, it can lead to cross contamination through that. So the cross contamination is the biggest reason for transmission. This contamination or the infection can happen from human to human, the surfaces to human, that is from human to surface and back to human, human to food surfaces and back to human. So prevention of this transmission of this coronavirus is the basic objective of COVID special guidelines, which are issued by FSSAI. Now, what is the concern or the relevance of this SARS-CoV-2 food processing industry? As I have stated here, that this virus is highly infectious in nature. It means that it spreads rapidly. Food industry are crowded places, so definitely we have to prevent the infection, and that's why it is a matter of concern. It has a high mutation rate. It means that it's a RNA virus, and it changes its what you can say form. First version, second version, third version, like that. So even if we get the vaccine for a certain version, the next version of the same virus can definitely affect us. Now the entire guidelines which are issued by FSSAI to start the operations in food industry they revolve around prevention of spread of the SARS-CoV-2 through cross contamination. Now we all know that fortunately the cleaning and sanitation practices, personal hygiene practices, these are not unknown to food industry. This is what we do on a daily basis. Okay, so what in addition to these practices, what I can see the additional features here in this guidelines is there is an addition of new surfaces that has to be included into the cleaning and sanitization program. And these surfaces, previously we were more concern about the food contact surfaces only, but now the surfaces which are highly touched upon or frequently touched, or there is a crowded place, the tabletops like doorknobs, railings, lift buttons, cafeterias, locker rooms, switches. All these surfaces can also act as a source of contamination to human being, and hence it has to be now considered under the cleaning and sanitization program. Apart from this, the another important aspect which is included under these guidelines is social distancing, which we have never done before as a country, I would say. And this particular aspect is definitely going to affect our shift planning, production planning. Maybe it will also reduce the output per shift, and maybe number of shifts will have to be increased. It all depend on the company to company. So these are two new things, entirely new things, which are included in these guidelines. And apart from it, now FBU has to provide more emphasis on the effectiveness of cleaning and sanitization program, as well as the personal hygiene program maintenance. Okay, in order to ensure that the food which is supplied to consumer is safe for consumption. Even though we say that food only act as a surface to transfer this virus, but yes, we don't want to supply contaminated food to our customers. Now, a natural question which comes to our mind is that what happens if I consume uh, contaminated food, virus contaminated food? What will happen to me? Will I get infected or not? Now, the chances are very slim that you will get the infection, because this virus has a lipid or fat envelope. It is an envelope virus, which makes it more susceptible towards the degradation. Once you are able to degrade the outer fat layer, its activity will be lost. So even if by mistake we consume the food contaminated with this virus, either this layer will get dissolved in our mouth cavity, or else it can also get degraded in the stomach. So there are very slim chances that we get coronavirus through food. Either it will support the multiplication, nor it will create the infection if by mistake it is consumed. Okay. Now, once we know that these surfaces act as a landing points for these viruses, here is some interesting information on for how long these viruses stay on these surfaces. As per the research, which I have also quoted as a reference one, it can remain on the copper surface for 4 hours, 24 hours on cardboard, 5 days on metal. More the drier surface, it remains longer there. And please understand that this was the study conducted under certain environmental conditions. And this virus were applied to this copper, cardboard, stainless steel, and plastic surfaces, and it was maintained at 21 to 23 degrees Celsius for 40% relative humidity over 7 days. Now, we have a different temperature range in our country, and relative humidity with the range starting, humidity will also change, and accordingly, the retention time on these particular surfaces of this virus will also vary. So, we have to actually be extra cautious when we think about, whether the virus will get deactivated on its own. Now, coming to the deactivation options. Now we know what is the nature of this virus and what are the options we have deactivated. The flop side is that the virus is pH stable in a range of 3 to 10, which means yes, most of the food falls in this a particular range of 3 to 7, or maximum with alkaline water it could go up to 8.59. Now the good part is that this virus may not withstand the reheating conditions. Now, reheating conditions are 74 degrees Celsius for 2 minutes. If you reheat the product, food product, for 74 degrees Celsius for 2 minutes, it is guaranteed that virus is completely denatured. It has a lipid envelope, as I said earlier, and hence it is easy to deactivate on the surfaces. There is another reference which I have put here on the bottom box, which says that the analysis of 22 studies reveal that human coronavirus SARS, MERS, and HCOV, which is SARS-CoV-2, it can persist on inanimate surfaces like metal, glass, plastic for up to 9 days, but it can be efficient inactivated by surface disinfection procedure with 62 to 71% ethanol. We use IPA solution, also 70%, 0.5% hydrogen peroxide, and most interestingly, 0.1% sodium hypochlorite, which is nothing but 1000 ppm of hypochlorite solution, which is freshly prepared. Okay, now when it comes to biofood, you can reheat it and kill it, and if it is present on the surfaces, you can deactivate it effectively. Hence, I feel we can control this virus to a great extent in our premises and also the processing factories. Okay. Now, coming back to the best practices. Now, as I said, FSSAI has issued the COVID special guidelines, which are now mandatory to follow for each and every FPO, irrespective of whether it's a registered company or state license or central license. Okay. Now, these two things I leave it to you for reading, licensing, registration and annual return. There is an extension in the timeline for submission of annual returns, which is extended till 31st of July, and it's a bit of relief for food industry, I would say. Coming back to the COVID-19 training, COVID-19 training is an online training, and all the FBOs are requested to undergo this training. The training should be given to each and every staff of the factory, including your security person, drivers, cleaners, and all the food handlers and office staff. Okay, so this is a kind of 1 hour training which is available online with the partners of FOSTAC. And also now, FSSAI has started the food safety supervisor FOSTAC training in online mode. Previously, this was not available. This is a recent development. And when you would be doing this training in future, the COVID-19 training would be an integral part of this FOSTAC FSS training. In online mode, the duration, methodology of training and assessment is modified a little bit. And classroom FOSTAC training is, yes, for some more time, I think, until the condition stabilizes. Guidance document on COVID-19. So this guidance document is available on FSSA website. I have also shared the link on the last slide of my presentation. And yes, I will not go into the details that I have only jot down certain important points which were not previously there in our food safety management system. Like formation of emergency response team and COVID-19 coordinator. This is now important, along with provision of quarantine rooms in factory premises. Now, this is the special provision now we have to make in the factory premises for suspected COVID patients as well as their close contacts. So there has to be a separate provision for patient and their close contacts. Now, thermal screening, as we all know that it has become mandatory. Use of PPE is mandatory all the time. Thorough training of employee on COVID guidelines, social distancing of 1 meter is, yes, it is important and mandatory now. There is an added emphasis on sanitization of premises and contact surfaces, as we have already discussed this. And each FBO has to ensure that all his suppliers are also meeting the FSSAI COVID-19 compliance norms, so that whatever raw material or packaging material which is coming from suppliers doesn't act as a source of infection in our premises. In addition to this, FSSAI has released the display board on preventive measures on COVID-19. It is again available on their website. It can be downloaded. And it is expected that these are displayed at right places for awareness purpose. The last but not least, the label claims for immunity booster products. As we all know that in coming times, in near future, market will be loaded with immunity booster products, and definitely people start claiming maybe some scientific or non-scientific claim also. So during that time, whenever you want to put up a claim on your label, please refer to food safety and standard advertisement and claim regulations. These are the golden rules. We have already discussed this. Now, since it is not possible to cover all the COVID special guidelines here, I have prepared a inspection checklist for for our viewers, I would say. And this is a 15-point checklist. And yes, you can directly use it and integrate it into your existing Schedule 4 requirement checklist, or for that matter, any internal audit checklist of ISO or FSSA 22000, because all these parameters are now mandatory to be included in your audit list. I have left the point number 15 open because it is specific to a particular sector like retail, home delivery, whatever is the type of business. So up to 14, it is general, mandatory for all, and there would be some sector specific requirements also. Okay, with this, Vishali, I think my presentation is over here.
Thank you, Dr. Rashmi. What we could do is that because it was so informative, maybe we can share this presentation with our participants
Yes.
later, and they can see the 15 points.
Yes.
Interestingly, you right into the next debate that we wanted to have, where I'd like to discuss with Muthu that Dr. Rashmi spoke about surfaces and materials and different materials being susceptible to different this thing, and then there is this whole fear amongst people that let's not buy bulk, let's buy smaller reusable products. Uh, Everything is getting wrapped in plastic. Masks are getting wrapped and further wrapped so that there is less contamination. How will this play out, Muthu, in the current scenario of fear of hygiene?
So the first part about uh, given that throughout my career I have worked extensively in the area of sustainability, especially in the context of packaging. Would you say that environmental concerns will take a backseat? Should regulatory circumstances demand that the industry adopt more use and throw packaging options for reasons of hygiene? Yeah. First of all, thank you for this question. So that's, by the way, the question. As you can imagine, it's a very, very loaded question. I don't have any presentation, but I have broken this question into four parts. First part is COVID and its impact on packaging and packaging industry. And one of the key observations I have is I think if you look at the last decade or two, the packaging design had taken the fundamental protection as given. Therefore, it moved more and more into experiential designing, and also added to that in the last half a decade to a decade, I think there is a lot more focus around sustainable packaging. Uh, and But that is changing. I think one of the key observation I have is uh, post COVID, it is back to core fundamentals of uh, hygiene and safety and functionality. And certainly we see there are new rituals at home. I'm sure all of you must be doing it. When you bring any product from outside, you immediately wash all items. Although Dr. Rashmi talked about, it is not yet proven, but I think fear psychology is forcing us to do some novel things, and everybody now washes anything that enters home. Therefore, washability is becoming a new order. And also, if I look at, there is more and more online shopping, and delivery happens at home. Therefore, people are certainly looking at more novel solutions to give you assurance that the area that a consumer will typically handle is free of touch points, and it's virus free and bacteria free. So people are looking for solutions. How can I provide a packaging that is virus free or bacteria free? There are coatings already getting developed across the world, uh, and uh, and therefore there is a clear demand that's emerging on hygiene based solutions. uh, the second observation is, I think most of the economy is impacted. Therefore, packaging industry is not an exception. And just to tell you, packaging is a 1 trillion economy globally, and it's a $50 billion industry in India. Therefore, COVID certainly has its impact. One of the point I want to highlight here, related to sustainability, is given that the overall consumption is down, and also the commodity like crude prices have gone down. uh, the overall polymer virgin polymer prices are historically at a lower price, and therefore it does have some impact on recycled grades. In fact, there are news that in across the world few recycling plants have shut their business. So, COVID certainly, just to summarize the first part of my answer, COVID and its impact on packaging. Yes, it has an impact on packaging industry, but it's short term. I think we are all hoping for a V-shaped recovery. Second, with regard to the new rituals that are coming in, I think it has brought the focus around hygiene-based solutions. Let me now look at COVID and its impact on some of the shopping and shoppers' rituals. You know, I think I don't know how many of you have read. Starbucks and Dunkin' Donuts have temporarily stopped encouraging people to bring refillable glasses. They have a fear that it may kind of bring the virus from the from the consumer who is bringing the reusable glasses. So it is kind of bringing a license to operate in single use throwaway glasses. So that's a very interesting observation how hygiene overpowers some of the circularity principles that we are all trying to establish to bring down the plastic waste hitting the oceans. Um, and if I move to COVID and its impact on sustainable packaging, economically, I think there is a lot of pressure for businesses to look at cost reductions. Therefore, where sustainable packaging are more expensive, people will think twice before moving for it. But that's going to be a temporary pause in my mind. But I see more of an and approach. I think the focus is still going to be uh, around uh, sustainable packaging. Uh, I think this will quickly come back after we kind of settle down, and move away from clamp down to normal life. That's a hope I have. Finally, the question about what should regulators be doing, at this point of time of crisis. I think they will take certainly. I don't see a big change for regulator standpoint. I think they will certainly manage to move from management to facilitation of industry and businesses, and make sure that the law still talks about circularity and avoiding waste in the system. And therefore, I don't see a big change there. Uh, the second part of the question is coming back to the topic of sustainability. We are very much there still. What would your advice be to the industry to tackle the problem around sustainability? How is it? that business can adhere to regulatory requirements and continue to uphold the cause of sustainability and the environment. Um, as I said that these are difficult times. There are no easy on answers, but I certainly bring believe that there are three principles which will help the industry to overcome this, but also bring the balance between sustainability and business continuity. Uh, Number one is, I think, collaborative approach and consortium based approach. How can the industry come along and find solutions to problem? Because sustainability is such a challenge. Not one player can can identify a problem. Sorry, solution to the problem. I think it has to be a collective approach, and I think already there are lots of partnerships emerging between brand owners and the subsequent value chain providers. But apart from brand owners having each brand owner having subsequent partnership with the value chain provider, is there an opportunity for brand owners, big brand owners, like-minded people to come together? There are few such initiatives happening, but there is certainly more opportunity for that to happen in future. So one is collaboration approach. Second one is I think we have to be creative. Every uh, challenge brings a new opportunity, and if I look at the sustainability challenge, and if we were to give a license to operate single use plastic, is there an opportunity for us to finding a solution? Because the moment you go for single use, one is people are already moving towards uh, recyclability. Therefore, design of recyclable solution, which used to be a problem earlier, is getting addressed effectively now. Therefore, what is remain to be addressed is effective collection, particularly as we consume a small sachet of a candy, we don't take the effort to put it into an appropriate collection system. So is there any novel way of a consumer taking responsibility of collecting it themselves and keeping it in their pocket and bringing it back home, and or at an a place where there is a collection mechanism available? So how do we address the point of collection? Therefore, you don't worry about what material you use, whether it is single use or reusable, but you ensure that it is collected, it is put into a real life through circularity. So how do we amplify circularity is the second opportunity that I see. The third is, I think there is a huge opportunity for partnership between private and public. In terms of establishing the infrastructure and driving some of these whole ecosystem for circularity. Uh, so these are going to be interesting times. It's going to be difficult, but some of these steps can certainly help us to keep the momentum going towards waste free and more circularity based approaches towards resolving the plastic litter and other challenges today the packaging world is facing. Let me stop here, and I shall now give it back to the next speaker.
Thank you, Muthu. Thank you for adding to your answer earlier. And in fact, now, Sayukta, there are three levels of questions that I have to ask you. So one was about how brands will talk about immunity, because Dr. Rashmi said that we have to be doubly careful.
Hello.
And uh, Muthu, we can hear you.
Hi, Samyukta.
And I think what we can also discuss briefly is how this whole sustainability story, and how can we encourage or talk to people about sustainability. Can we have some views on that?
So I would begin by thanking Dr. Rashmi. I think that's a brilliant presentation. So threw a lot of light for all of us as consumers and marketing. You know what's right and what's wrong. There are so many myths and things floating around. I think that was very very helpful. And Muthu's views also were very interesting in terms of the new normal and new habits that people are developing today. I think the main insight here is that the consumer has a heightened sense of safety. The consumer is experiencing a heightened sense of awareness. The consumer is going through a change in terms of now reading labels very, very carefully. The consumer is more aware than ever before. So I think as brand owners, as marketers, as advertisers, we will have to be. We have always been very, very correct, especially large organizations in terms of following the regulations and following the norms, etc. But it's always been like some kind of a challenge saying that okay, thoda sa ye bol sakte hai kya? Can we do this? Can we do that? It's always that kind of a thing that happens with the regulatory bodies. But largely, everybody kind of, I mean, you know how it works. Largely everybody does toe the line because that's how the system is built, and it's a good thing that the system keeps everybody in check. But I think they brands will have to go way beyond what we've been doing before. We will have to learn to innovate, to invent new standards. So if the regulatory body is saying X, we will have to take it up instead on our own without being told to do so. And those are the brands that will actually go beyond, give the consumer what is actually needed at this point in time. I think that's the onus that lies with brands today. That clear conscience, see, brand we'll have to develop a crystal clear conscience and say, if this was somebody in my family, what would I do? And then approach the entire brand process.
That's very heartening to know that brands are looking at a clear conscience, because now there is no policing the brands; they're self-policing. So it's a very nice place to be. Apologies for the. I think the monsoon is playing the havoc, and internet connections are all over the place. Uh, I can't see any questions. Sayukta, can you see any questions on the board? Maybe you would want to pick up and answer.
I don't think there is one as yet, at least not that I can see.
Okay. Dr. Rashmi, would you want to add a little about how we can, how smaller organizations, maybe startups, can look at getting on board with the FSSAI regulations? What are the steps they need to take?
Yeah. Uh, Prashali, as I said earlier, there are special guidelines for this COVID pandemic to start the operations. Okay, now it is irrespective of whether the organization is smaller or bigger. The fact is that the products are reaching to a variety of people at different places in India, so they are reaching to us, and hence it is important, irrespective of the size of organization, that we follow the FSSAI COVID guidelines. And these are simple, as I said earlier. These are not new to us. Only two things, and precisely only one thing is new to us, which is the social distancing. We already have the cleaning and sanitation programs in place in food industry, which is an integral part of Schedule 4 requirement of FSSAI, and also the food safety management system, wherein we have the SOPs ready for cleaning, what to clean, how to clean, when to clean, and then validation and all those things, effectiveness testing, all these things are daily part of the cleaning programs. And yes, with this COVID, I would say now the smaller, even very small organizations which were not so serious about the hygiene and sanitary requirements of Schedule 4, now they will become more conscious about it, and quickly they will also start following it effectively. And that is the positive change I can see due to the issuance of these guidelines.
Uh, sure. We are running out of time as well, and if there are any questions from the audience, maybe they can plug in and send them now. In the meanwhile, Sayukta, we have been struggling with brands and food wastage and sustainability in the same. How have brands tackled that till now? Is there some thought on that?
In terms of the wastage of the time.
In terms of
So I
sustainability,
think, yeah, I think we've all been kind of grappling with this whole situation of saying, what is the right thing, what is the wrong thing to do. Because it boils down to the environment, it boils down to are you harming it. But I think if we were to look at a slightly differentiated view, in a country like ours, where most people go hungry, and basic requirement like food itself becomes a very, very big challenge to most part of our country. I think therefore, what happens is that in general, the market itself is extremely price sensitive. What happens is the chicken and egg story. I mean, I'm not here to advocate something is right or wrong, but I'm just trying to give a point of view and talk about what essentially happens. When you try to go for extremely sustainable solutions, automatically you will have to build it into your entire pricing, which you will then pass it on to the consumer. The minute that happens, it's not sustainable as a business to then handle that. The consumer is not going to pick up something that's too expensive or too pricey. So then you kind of go back to options that may not be the right, may not be the best solution. But only one good thing is that when you are using things that are probably not completely environmentally friendly, but at least can be recycled, like say plastic. At least you know that, especially in today's times, you know that till that last mile delivery, there is a certain level of safety and hygiene that is needed. Vis-a-vis, say, to use a material that may be extremely recyclable, may be very expensive, but may actually not end up keeping your food product safe. So probably in today's times, I think Muthu was kind of briefly touched upon the fact that we were all heading towards times where we were telling people get your own glass and get your own cup, and we'll fill it up for you, vis-a-vis doing that wastage. I think it's kind of taking us all back in time, saying no, let's repack everything from factory right up to your home. Irrespective of even if it's plastic, at least I know that it's completely. So I don't know if there's a right or wrong answer to this, but everything seems to be going in reverse in my mind right now.
Yes. Muthu, one last question and then we'll close the session. Historically, COVID or non-COVID, brands have been struggling to get sustainable solutions and balance the price point what Sangeeta is talking about. How far in the future do you see this hitting the right balance where brands can or be able to access sustainable choices, make sustainable choices, and yet not pass it on to the consumers as cost?
Sure. Sorry, I still couldn't hear what Samikta said. Not a problem at all. So, as I understand, your question, Vrishali, is uh, in your observation today, sustainable solutions are premium. We are not able to afford. Therefore, how long will it take for brands to start affording? Is a point. Yeah. Uh, See, it's a bit of a chicken and egg story because for you to bring the cost down, you need to have economies of scale. Yeah, I think first of all, there is a responsibility where brand owners will have to make a choice. You cannot forever wait. At some point of time, the cost will come down. Therefore, I can make it afford. So if there is a resolution to move forward in that direction, and then creating a roadmap with partners across the value chain, that how can we make it work? A kind of an attitude needs to come in. I'm not saying that every brand owner has this challenge. There are a lot of brand owners where, in my mind, the train has left the station and they have already undertaken the journey, but there are many more which are yet to be doing. They are actually sitting in the fence and deciding at some point of time it will become affordable, therefore I'll jump the ship. But I will therefore there is a positive change required into the approach. That is one aspect of it. The second aspect of it is, I think, uh, you know there are solutions available, and it's about bringing the collective wisdom of the industry players, because particularly equally some of the players who are offering the solution, because they have found through a lot of research and development, they would like to make a premium for it. And how can you kind of work towards a roadmap, and where the industry comes together and creating, it may be initially expensive for to start with, but when you have scale and people kind of therefore average out their profitability today, only handful of brand owners who have moved into that direction. Therefore there is still major chunk which is yet to be moving into that direction. Therefore there is a bit of complexity and therefore more premium. And and I think the only way out is working together as a team, and finding a timeline for by which that critical mass gets achieved. Therefore, the profitability gets distributed, and therefore affordability kicks in. Uh, so I would say there is a bit of both the industry to come together and find a way of managing this.
I think it is more about collective effort rather than a single step at a time. So
Yep.
maybe the organizations need to have more policy level decisions.
Yes.
Ritu, I just have one more question to you, and then we will conclude. One is you spoke about recyclability and getting the product ultimately in the right bin. Uh, how do you see that happening? Are there any suggestions to the industry that you can make where people are doing the right thing? Of course, apart from awareness.
Uh, can you repeat that question, Vrishali? So you would like to?
So you spoke about getting the right material in the right bin so that there is better recyclability.
Sure, sure,
Can we
sure.
do that?
Yeah, yeah. It's a good question. Uh, see, I think just even I am as educated as one can be in the packaging field. When I go to Europe, I still struggle to decide which bin should I throw the packaging into. So it's not that easy because the world of polymers and world of various packaging materials and choices does confuse consumer. I would say that the call for action is how can we uh, simplified through color coding and there are multiple initiatives required. One is driving the consumer awareness. Second is simplifying the terminology from technical to common understanding. Even uneducated people across the world can identify what is a call for action for them, and then thirdly, in terms of establishing the overall the collection centers across the length and breadth of the consumption. So it is possible, but it took Germany to 30 or European countries for 30 years to undertake this journey of establishing collection everywhere and cleaning up the place and putting up appropriate infrastructure, including after collection, what can be done with those materials, how can you bring recycling, etc. So uh, but I think there is still an opportunity, and people can go. So I would break that journey into those four aspects of educating consumers, simplifying the call for action through color coding, therefore everybody in the system can understand and take appropriate actions, and creating infrastructure. There is no easy way out it, but if you put a mind towards it, I think one can quickly ramp it up, and there are within that there are so much scope for ingenuity and creativity. I'm sure if we break the big elephant into smaller chunks, I think the whole industry will gear up for bringing more innovation in each of these aspects.
Hoping for that, Muthu.
Yeah.
Uh, thank you, everyone. I'm sorry for all the technical issues that happened, and the next time we will not schedule it around a cyclone. But thank you, everyone, for joining us, and
Thank you so much.
Thank
we'll
you.
share the presentation with the team shortly.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks, Monica. Thanks, Muthu. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Right.